All right, thank you everybody for joining today's session. Today we'll be completing a product demonstration of Carbon Central. In terms of an agenda, we will be going through a brief overview of the product. We'll then jump into a live demonstration, followed by some time for Q&A at the end of the session. So at a very, very brief high level, how does Carbon Central work and what is the product that we will be displaying today? Carbon Central makes your emissions and data traceable, trackable, verifiable, and ready for audit in 3 simple steps. Our product enables you to connect with your existing systems. This can be things from smart sensors, IoT sensors, ERP systems, etc. We use that connection to your systems to calculate emissions and track processes, whether you're working in energy production, fuel production, and a range of other green resources. And lastly, we use that the complete information to create trusted digital certificates. The digital certificates are the key output of Carbon Central, giving us full traceability of stages 1, 2 into the final product. In today's demo, we'll be going through an overview to explain how each of these 3 steps works together, and then look at an example digital certificate. So who is this product for? Carbon Central really works across 4 key capabilities, and we like to apply our solution to a range of different industries. If you are a green resource producer, for example, those producing hydrogen, biofuel, SAF, and the full range of other sustainable fuels, you can use Carbon Central to track your production volumes and emissions. You can back your green transparency claims. You could support tax incentives, plus, of course, alignment with industry standards that are relevant for your particular product. If you're a manufacturer or an industrial operator, such as on-site recyclers, other bio-based products, and energy-intensive activities, you could use Carbon Central to monitor your carbon and intensity and emissions. You can integrate with meters depending on your batch processing, your feedstock changes, and a range of other metrics. And lastly, you can then generate guarantee of origin certificates and other digital certificates that represent the product that you have created. Next, if you work across energy and infrastructure, you can use Carbon Central to record a high quality and high granularity of your energy track and trace. This is particularly useful for the European markets, where requirements such as temporal granularity are key, which effectively means tracking your production and mapping your energy usage tightly within the same geographical region and sometimes within the same time periods. Lastly, if you're a sustainability team or compliance manager, Carbon Central can help you to report and calculate your company emissions. This is particularly useful for audit reports, stay in compliance with different reporting standards, and the ever-growing and ever-changing carbon reporting. How does Carbon Central make your data monetizable? At the end of the day, when we integrate with one of those 4 types of projects, the goal will be either to enable a high-quality report, and where possible, we want to be able to enable additional revenue to be generated from your projects. Some examples of what that can look like could be to create new revenue for your business with carbon credits. If we have integrated with an energy project or any sort of carbon negative project, we track data to such a high quality that we'd be able to help provide you with automatic generation of carbon credits across a range of voluntary markets. Next, you might be looking to attract a premium for your sustainable product by proving carbon savings. If you are working across manufacturing or product production, and you can prove using Carbon Central that your product is low carbon, We can help you to fetch a premium, plus including the associated reporting needed to give to your downstream customers. We aim to make your products easier to sell. ESG certification is an ever-growing industry. What might be a nice to have or an optional calculation at any given point can quickly become an industry standard or an industry regulation. Downstream customers are beginning to look with a much closer magnifying glass at their upstream suppliers and production inputs. Without proper reporting and without proper tracking and trace, using a platform like Carbon Central, it will become much more difficult to offload your products. And lastly, as a final example, because of the high quality data granularity that we can achieve with our product, we can help you to access ESG funding, as well as initiatives such as tax incentives. The reporting and structure that we can give to your data fits nicely with a wide range of standards and incentives that are out there in the current market. These are just some examples, of course. This industry is always looking for new methods to monetize sustainability data. And a key component of Carbon Central is, of course, our flexibility. So if a new opportunity does come up through one of our projects, we will absolutely make sure we work with you to maximize any possible revenue opportunities. Up next, we'll be jumping into a live demo to really help to close the gap between those high-level metrics, the industries, and how we actually integrate with data. Today, we'll be looking at a trusted green hydrogen tracking project. The objectives for this particular project are to prove the sustainability of hydrogen. We will be looking at how we track energy, emissions, and water, whilst also supporting guarantee of origin and other audit requirements. The environment that we will be looking at features a 25 megawatt electrolyzer, which produces approximately 10,000 kilograms of hydrogen per day. It's powered by a mix of grid and renewable energy. And during our demo, you'll see how we have connected to the live sensors and meters to be able to unlock traceability of all of the product that is generated. I'd just like to remind everyone, if you do have questions during the demonstration, please feel free to use the Q&A section that is within Teams. We will address these towards the end of the session. And I'll now switch over to the demonstration environment to continue today's webinar. All right, so on your screen now, you should be able to see the landing page for Carbon Central. To really allow Carbon Central to work flexibly across a full range of projects, you can integrate your same company profile or your same account with a range of different companies across the industry. This is particularly helpful if you are a portfolio manager or an auditor who would like to use the data within this platform to verify a range of company projects. In today's example, we'll be jumping into the NoviqTech company, which I'll now click Launch to hop into. And we're now brought to the project section within Carbon Central, which is where all of the value that we described during our first few slides starts to become unlocked. So as a typical new user, the first goal that you have when it comes to getting started with Carbon Central is to add in your company and then next to add in your project. Now today I've set up a project in advance, which was the green hydrogen facility that I mentioned just before. But if you're looking to get started as someone new, you can of course use our AI chatbot feature to ask questions about what requirements might be needed, how you can get started, and the stages needed to be able to get your own project added. In this project list, we can see a range of different projects located all around the world. The goal here is to allow a company to manage a wide range of portfolio projects all through Carbon Central. And today, now I'll jump into the green hydrogen demonstration. So from this point forwards, what we're seeing now is the unique project experience for Carbon Central. Every project that can be added into the platform shares these next capabilities. What that means is we can get a really granular level of data and tracking based on a per site or per facility basis, all managed under the same central platform. So your company does not have to integrate with a full range of different tools for each of your different projects. You can track and trace a whole range of projects through just this one platform. During the project onboarding, we collect a range of project information, like where it's located, what your goal might be for the project, and if you do know the particular standard that you would want to be aligning with. This information is used for all of the downstream reporting, of course. Any of the project reporting that requires header information can fetch from here. But to truly understand and unlock the value of Carbon Central, I'll now introduce you to the concept of our digital twin. This is where majority of the effort and the onboarding experience stays, where we help you to capture your full site or your full facilities stages. When I'm explaining how Carbon Central works to people, I often find it helpful to ask you as a customer to draw up your process or your facility on a whiteboard. And the truth of it is, if you can draw it up on a whiteboard, whether it's a manual step, whether it's a particular device, and we can track your product flow, we will definitely be able to build a similar whiteboard inside of Carbon Central, and that's what we refer to as a digital twin. On the page here now, we can see an already set up project, of course, and we'll draw our attention to this bottom section here, which has these range of tiles. These tiles are labeled A, B, C, D, etc. And you'll notice there's two different colors. A green tile represents a manual data source or data set, and a blue tile represents an automated meter device, a physical device, an IoT sensor, or something similar. Now, going back to the whiteboard analogy, for today's project and today's objective, our goal is to track the production of hydrogen and its associated carbon intensity. And to be able to complete that, we can first look at the production profile. This is where a company can enter the facility location, the facility information, the production technology, and if additional evidence is required. I'll take a moment here to note that the form that actually is visible here can be customized. So when we are onboarding you into Carbon Central, if different metrics are needed to be tracked based on your geographical location, for example, differences between Europe, Australia, and Americas, this form can be customized as needed to make sure that we're tracking what's required for the standard and method that you wish to be aligning with. There can be a whole range of manual data sources if needed. In this example, we just have the one, but in a moment's time, we'll look into the concept of batch management, which will show you how you can attach a whole different range of manual data to your Carbon Central digital twin. Next, following the product flow here, we can see a range of devices that we have integrated with to track the production of hydrogen. Each of the key steps, which were identified during the onboarding process, are now represented as an individual tile. We can see some really important steps for the production of hydrogen, such as water treatment and electrolysis. And if I zoom out just a little bit, you can also notice that this branch over here, labeled as Block D for the air separation unit, splits off from the main flow. And this demonstrates how we can track additional co-products all within the same digital twin. When producing hydrogen using this method, oxygen is a byproduct. However, it can absolutely be an additional product which can be tracked. And so we have that flexibility here to track additional co-products as needed. The following devices here reflect the main flow again, but this is very specific to a hydrogen use case. If you were working across a different industry, for example, biofuel, you might see similar steps. You might see distillation or processing. If you were working across the recycling industry, you might see similar stages. However, there's more focus on the waste management component or the actual recycling component. If you were working across a solar farm or energy production, in place of devices which consume electricity and energy, we might see devices which report the production of those things instead. The important takeaway for a digital twin is that every single one of these blocks can be a unique step in your unique process. And getting a little bit into the tech, that also means you can have a unique integration that's required to be able to achieve getting that data in. If we think about the real world, it's extremely unlikely that 4 or 5 different devices all share the exact same meter reporting standard. They'll be produced by a range of different manufacturers, which means that to aggregate all of that data together can be a challenging task. Carbon Central removes that complexity by letting you build a unique integration for each one of these stages, each one of these tiles, I should say. And you bring that into what's known as our unique Carbon Central data structure, which is how we can apply to a full range of different devices, projects, etc., all through the same digital twin infrastructure. I'll show you a brief explanation on how that looks in reality. So I've clicked into the electrolyzer device here, which is really one of the most important stages for hydrogen. Again, as a reminder, this can be any device depending on your project. We've identified what the important resources and electricity sources for us to track are. In this case, we're looking at a treated water as an input or a feedstock. And we're looking at electricity consumption from a meter feed. And then similarly, we can track the output again from oxygen and also wet hydrogen at this stage, which gives us a flexible range of data coming into Carbon Central. Now, you'll notice if I click into a different device, we share a very similar structure. However, in the background behind this, of course, is your more traditional meter data file. We spend the time to make sure during the onboarding part of Carbon Central that all of your data comes into one cohesive structure and one cohesive language, and that's how we can build what we refer to in the long run as a digital certificate, something that we'll look at together in a few moments. So now that all of this data is in here, we're talking about the first objective of aggregating and collating data together. The second objective was to understand my emissions or understand my waste or understand some sort of step where I need to perform a calculation. Continuing with our unique configuration based on the device. Each device and each integration that you do within Carbon Central can also have its own range of unique formulas, and this is extremely helpful to be able to calculate something such as the carbon emission. In this particular example here, we've broken down the calculation of carbon equivalent emission into scope 2 and an estimation for scope 3 based on the standard that we're aligning with for this project. In Australia, if we take an example, there's a range of different sources for energy emissions metrics. However, I would like to highlight that if a facility was producing on-site energy, say, for example, this manufacturing facility had solar panels on the roof, we would see solar panels as a device that we have integrated with, giving us the flexibility then to use that as our energy source when we're completing these calculations. Each one of these calculations occurs step by step, building towards the final or the most important calculation in this case, which is that net emissions. And what you'll notice is, based on what I've explained, this is happening for each device independently. And what it means is for any given moment at any point in time, whether it's the water treatment that we're looking at or the electrolyzer or the compression and conditioning step, an independent carbon emission can be calculated for each of those devices. And this is where we start thinking about where now we're really getting a good level of granularity regarding our carbon emission, as opposed to one calculation for the whole facility. We're looking at individual devices, also giving us the operational flexibility to address where our highest sources of emissions are coming from. Okay. Lastly, I will just mention, of course, the purple section at the top of the digital twin, known as our key metrics. This is completing a set of summary calculations. You can see how this can be configured by looking at a particular data point within your digital twin. If we look here, we're looking at the formula from the compression and conditioning block from block F. And I can similarly, of course, find that data source here, which would have been set up during my initial onboarding. And it would be linked to the appropriate source here, giving us the ability to summarize the information from across the digital twin. Our carbon emission step, of course, is calculating the summary, the sum of all of our carbon emission from each of our blocks. It's just refreshing right now. And this can be customized based on the actual batch that is selected, which now gives us a great opportunity to jump into the concept of batch management within Carbon Central. So far, everything's great. We've looked at a range of devices. They've been able to give us automated data. We've been able to apply calculations to them to calculate our carbon emission. So now we have, let's say, on a 5-minute basis, 15-minute basis, etc., an understanding of each device and its associated emissions and associated production for that time periods. But if you ask me the question, well, how do I sign off then on a batch that's being completed? How do I upload an audit report which covers the last 1 month worth of production? How do I group my data for an annual report if I'm working across an energy or carbon project? This is where the batch management feature becomes useful. Batch management effectively lets you set any start and end time within the platform. By setting a start and end time, it helps you to group the data that we have collected within the digital twin. And by grouping that information, then we're able to look at the tokens that were minted within that period and tag additional information to our already minted digital certificates. I'll just look at one example here, as these are typically very customized based on the project we're working with. But in this example, we can look at how a company can attach a whole range of additional reports, verification reports, audit reports, and other evidence. And because we're attaching this to our batch, which currently has no end time, all 689 certificates that we have minted so far will be updated with this information. This gives flexibility while still retaining the high quality of data provenance, and allows you to also attach a range of other information, such as where the product was transported, was it sold to one particular customer, and again, depending on the standard we're working with, some call for this, particularly the inclusion of the emissions associated with the final transport of that product, most commonly putting it onto a truck or a train and transporting it to the final destination. Okay, to wrap up the digital twin area of Carbon Central, I'll just explain now how all of this data goes from a range of data that's coming in constantly to a digital certificate, where we can unlock those monetary goals that we spoke about. Remembering the monetary goals are either to prove their sustainability, so we can charge a premium, to create a carbon credit that we can sell to someone who needs it, to meet a tax incentive, and a whole other range of revenue generating opportunities. So to do this, the first stage is to return to your digital twin and actually configure what it is that we should be creating a digital certificate from. In this digital twin, we were looking at hydrogen, of course, and the final step from our site, where the hydrogen exits our facility, is the compression and conditioning step, which is this final block here within our twin. We're able to select that is the block that we want to be minting upon, enter that we want to mint for every 1 ton of unit that we track, and that will give us an estimation for how many tokens we will be minting per day. Just a note that when I use the word token, it refers back to a digital certificate. And then we're of course able to actually start minting within our facility, which switches us from the onboarding phase where we've put in the effort to set up our project, understand our workflow, to the live phase where we're now automatically creating the evidence required for your reporting needs. I'll now show some of these example tokens from this particular project by clicking over here on the tokens section. Right, so continuing our demo today, I'm now introducing with a bit more detail the concept of a digital certificate or token. Based on the digital twin that we configured during onboarding, based on each of the stages that we looked at, based on the batch, and of course, based on the project, we're able to aggregate all of that information into a digital token, which represents the production. And this is how we can increase the granularity and the quality and trust behind your sustainability claim. When I click into one of these tokens here that's been minted recently, I'm not just looking at general information. I'm looking at unique information for just this 1 ton of hydrogen that was produced, the batch that it was associated with, the devices that it came from, plus their associated emissions during its production. And of course, that gives us what's referred to as the full provenance of a production of a unit. We'll now scroll through to look at some of these stages. And what I'll get you to think about is that initial whiteboard or that digital twin that we were looking at. In our green hydrogen example today, we were looking at the batches, we were looking at the electrolyzer, the water treatment, and a range of other devices. And you'll see now, as we go through this token, all of the data which is stored on our blockchain is now associated appropriately. We have the project, including exactly when it was created inside of Carbon Central. We have any of the information that was captured during initial onboarding. We looked at the production profile, which was the first manual block that was included on our digital twin, which included high-level information about the project we're looking at. We looked at the batch, in this case, which is still open. It's not a problem for our token. We can still fetch the appropriate information. For batch, labeled batch number 1, we're able to see any of the manual information that was uploaded. And if I remember correctly, in today's demo, we looked at the files which could have been uploaded, such as an audit report or an attestation. Then, once we've gone through the relevant project and the relevant batch, we're now getting into the depth of the individual devices and their associated product volumes and emissions, all based on the calculations that we were able to complete in the digital twin. So in today's demo, we looked at the electrolyzer machine being the key stage of hydrogen production. If you remember looking at the configuration of this device when that slid out and we were looking at it on the digital twin, you'll notice that we're seeing a very similar structure now. This is where that initial configuration flows all the way down into your full provenance. We can see the inputs that we tracked, as well as the electricity consumption, and we can see the outputs that we tracked. We can see each of the resulting values for all of the formulas that we produced. And lastly, we can see the net emissions or the final formula, which was included, plus any of the associated notes. Now, if you were an auditor, you might be thinking, how do I verify that this information is complete and trustworthy? This is where our range of reports and more detailed information comes into play. If within the trust chain itself, we're looking at one token that was minted on the 2nd of April at 6:50, representing 1 ton of hydrogen, and we're looking at a particular device now, the electrolyzer device. I can view all of the meter readings which we received that were associated with this 1 ton of hydrogen production. You can see in this case, we have maybe 10 different meter readings. And if you're an auditor or you need the raw data to be able to back your claim, every underlying data point that we got into our platform is now completely accessible. We can see the formulas and how that maps back to the result that we got, any of the configurations such as the unit of measure, and of course this includes the full range of data that we collected. Now, of course, I can understand we're looking at a whole range of very raw, unedited data here, but this is key for an auditor to be able to see what the original data looked like before, of course, we customize it to be able to view on our trust chain. And that gives any auditor or project certifier, or even you as a company, the option to look at any particular token that was created at any point in time, see exactly what was going on within any device, plus the actual emissions associated with that particular meter reading. Fantastic. So lastly, I'll just explain the other ways that data can be exported from Carbon Central. So in this demo, the reports are turned off, but you can see a whole range of reports could be exported other than just looking at the trust chain. We could look at a data report, which is all of the original meter readings plus their associated carbon emission calculation, very helpful for an auditor. We could look at a token report, which is all of the digital certificates that we've created, a whole other range, of course, which can be customized based on your particular project. And then today I'll show you an example of a batch report for this hydrogen project. So by clicking on the batch report, we're able to export and generate after selecting the batch that we're looking at, which now gives us a much easier to understand summary of all of the data that went into our product. What's important to keep in mind for Carbon Central is it's built for different users based on the phase that we're looking at. When we were looking at the digital twin, that's built for your site engineers. It's built for your tech team to be able to work with us to get all of the data that we need into the platform. When we look at the trust chain and the tokens, we're looking from the perspective of an auditor or a project certifier. We're looking for really granular, detailed information. And lastly, now we're looking at an example report. We're looking from the perspective of one of your downstream customers. How can I view all of the information that you gathered to have confidence in the product that I'm buying, the product that I'm paying a premium for, or the carbon credit that I'm purchasing? You'll notice, of course, in a nicer and easier to understand format, a lot of the same information that we've just looked at through our digital twins and through our tokens. We can see the associated batch that this token came from. We can look at an important metric, for example, the carbon savings against a baseline. And of course, because we have a high quality calculation of the carbon intensity for this 1 ton of hydrogen, we can calculate how much carbon you avoided or saved. plus a summary, of course, of the associated batch that this digital certificate represents. Now, the particular information that's shown here is not critical for any one project. Depending on the project that we've connected with or integrated with, depends on the type of information that we want to show here on a proof of sustainability or guarantee of origin certificate. But what I hope to have been able to show you today is the depth of Carbon Central from when you're a project operator or manager, being able to access a whole range of projects, when you're a site engineer or an environmental scientist, being able to integrate your facility based on a whiteboard, based on the exact process that we're tracking. If you're an auditor or a project certifier, being able to view that information to a high granularity. And if you're a downstream customer purchasing a product, then of course being able to see a summary of all of that information in a much easier to consume way. Fantastic. Thank you everybody for joining today's demo. We have a few minutes now at the end of this session for any questions. So as a final reminder, of course, there is a Q&A function within your Teams application where you can submit a question. And then we will read those, the questions out that we have time, and I'll answer some of those for you right now. Thanks very much.
Okay, hi everyone. As Tyrone said, we do have a bit of time for a few questions. If I don't read yours, feel free to reach out to us through the website, or you can follow up after the session. Since we don't have much time, let me read it. First question, Tyrone, is how does Carbon Central handle changes over time? Like when we improve a recovery process, for example, or switch to new equipments?
Yes, so what you'll notice if we take today's example that we looked at in the demo, if you remember visually, we looked at a range of tiles, those green and purple tiles. Each one of those can be thought of as an independent, independent piece of Lego. If you need to switch one out, it's not going to break the rest of the chain as long as you can put another piece back in. So if we're talking about replacing a facility, replacing a meter, at a facility, or even completely changing the production device, you don't have to start from scratch. All of the tokens, all of the digital certificates, and all of the auditable data that is stored on chain remains as is. At a point in time, we will then pause the minting for the digital twin. When we pause it, we're now free to make changes to the data flow, and this will affect any of the future tokens that are produced. And you can effectively, sky's the limit, make whatever adjustments you need to your digital twins, manual data, automated data, and devices. And when everything is ready to go again, hit the unpause button to begin token minting, which enables all of your downstream reporting, etc.
Okay, next question is a very common question is, not our data we have is automated. We still rely a lot of manual data. Can we still onboard a project on Carbon Central?
Yes, absolutely. So in today's demo, we looked at a facility where we're able to automatically mint digital certificates that represent every ton of a product produced. If your existing facility doesn't already have existing devices, there's nothing to worry about. We lean much more heavily on our batch management feature. If you remember when I was talking about batch management, I mentioned data grouped based on time periods. We can be extremely flexible with the type of data that with the types of manual data that we can upload to a batch. This can be anything that needs to be included, like an audit report completed 6 months later, even all the way down to someone specifically signing off on and uploading the number or the quantity of product produced. What that lets us do is mint tokens based on a manual trigger. So a user actually triggering the digital certificate creation. However, I will note that most standards that we've worked with in the past, this would result in a lower quality output. And so the actual reporting that we're able to unlock through our platform together would be of a low to medium quality, but we will then work with you to identify the most important points in your process that need to be updated, of course, keeping costs as low as possible. And we can then upgrade that process, and going back to one question ago, modify the digital twin as needed to continue. Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks. We
last
probably have just
question.
one more. Yeah, thanks,
Yes.
Carolina.
So last question is, we want to use the data not just for reporting, but also to inform pricing or partnerships. Is there flexibility in how the output data is structured or can be shared?
Yeah, great question. So one of the features of Carbon Central that we didn't necessarily talk about today is the ability to create a digital twin completely from a feasibility standpoint. So each device that we create could be an artificial device or a representation using a simulation. And by doing that, you're able to confirm your calculations, your numbers from your feasibility assessment, while still creating, in this case, what would be an artificial digital certificate. You can then use that for any downstream reporting, plus after validating your calculations, that can be given to any investors that you might be working with. And so that gives us flexibility from our same product to unlock funding initiatives and investment as needed, even before a project is in full operations. Great. Thanks everybody for joining today's session. So if you did have any additional questions that you would like to discuss with us, please feel free to get in contact through our website Contact Us page. We also have our info email, which you can send us an email through. Plus, of course, we will always reply to any requests that come through our social media channels. That closes off today's product demo. Thanks again for joining, and a recording will be shared in a few moments after the processing is completed. Thanks everybody.